afternoon. This is Mark's Musings, and you are here at WCTV.org in Wilmington, Massachusetts. And we are producing a program called Mark's Musings, and we broadcast the program once a month, and it's about a 30-minute session where we interview local authors. Today we are pleased to have with us a local author by the name of Jane Willan. Welcome, Jane.
Hello, great to be here, Mark. I love this studio. This is really pretty cool.
Isn't it neat? Yeah. Everyone here mostly is all volunteer. We come in and do a lot of variety of different things. There's a few full-time people, but we help out with all kinds of town events. So it's a really exciting place to be. And it's also a place where kids from the local high school can learn about awesome. Video production, etc., and maybe take it on as a career. So today, what I know that you, by looking in your bio, I know that you have published several books and also some cookbooks too, and some mystery novels. So let's just get started about how did you get started in writing?
Well, before I start, I have to tell you, I didn't publish those cookbooks. There's actually an author out there with my exact name, Jane Willan, and she's a cookbook author.
Oh, no.
But I think it's pretty funny because people have actually seen The Shadow of Death and thought it was a cookbook, which I think is a pretty crazy title for a cookbook.
Oh my God.
The Shadow of Death, or The Hour of Death.
See, I made the same mistake.
Dinner hour, hour of death. Not good. Not good. But anyways, no, that's okay. She's much better published than I am. So you asked me how did I get started writing?
Yes.
Well, I haven't always been a writer. Like a lot of my colleagues and writing friends, they've been writing since age 4. But I've always been a reader, a very big reader. So about 20 years ago, I had a job where I worked at an MRI clinic, and all I did was I sat behind the desk, and when somebody came in, I gave them their paperwork.
Yes.
That's all I did. I did that all day long.
Oh boy.
And so I got very bored. So in between patients, I would read. And I found I read a novel every day. So after I read about 15 novels, I thought, I'm going to start writing. So I started writing, but all I had behind that desk was email. So I wrote a chapter a day of a book, and I just emailed it to myself. So that's how I started writing.
What an interesting way to get started.
Out of sheer boredom, I began to write. Yeah.
That is so, and to be able to read a novel a day, that is unbelievable, because I'm an awful slow reader. It takes me weeks to get through just one novel, but some people are fast readers, and so I'm glad that you have that ability. That's great, yeah. So you were writing some articles or stories. Were they complete books or just like...
No, I started with a complete book. I wrote a novel that's never seen the light of day. It's called The Tree Climbers. And
okay.
I haven't even looked at it in 10 years. I wonder what it looks like. But I wrote that novel, and I found I just loved doing it. And so I started working on the craft of writing.
Yes.
And then I went into science writing, and I worked as a freelancer in science writing. And so, and then I kept working at my craft of writing and kept working, and then eventually wrote The Shadow of Death, which was published.
Oh, that's good. That's how you got started. So have you published anything in magazines, like articles like that? Or?
A little bit. I did a social justice article that I published with, I'm a pastor of a church in the United Church of Christ,
yes.
And I published an article about immigration with one of our magazines. And I write for the Worcester Telegram every couple of months. I do an article for Keeping the Faith. In fact, I'm writing one for this week, for this Saturday. And I do a lot of writing as a pastor because
that's interesting because once you get the bug in your head, you want to be able to express yourself and either in a newsletter or as a sermon for the church or even emails too. Yeah, so that's great because I belonged to a group called the Romeos, retired old men eating out. And,
I know that group, only I thought the R stood for something else.
Oh,
well, okay,
yeah,
retired.
Okay. But anyway, I started to write a blog, and then the blog turned into books.
Oh, cool.
People said, gee, those are interesting stories you're telling on the blog. Why don't you turn it into a book? And so the actual events on the blog became fictitious stories that eventually I started to write. So, well, that's great. So, so your first book, I noticed that your book takes place at an abbey in Wales.
Yes.
Have you traveled there, or have you been there, or how come you picked that setting?
When I first started writing The Shadow of Death, I had never been to Wales, but I really loved English mysteries where there's a vicar and a village, and most of them are set in England or, like in the Cotswolds or something. Some are set in Scotland, but I hadn't heard of any set in Wales. And even though I hadn't been to Wales, I loved it because as a kid I read that book, How Green Is My Valley.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And the narrator is a child, at least in the beginning of the book, and so I loved Wales from that book. So I just set my book in Wales. And it's really a perfect mystery area. It's very, it's steeped in pagan religion and, hills and valleys, and it's just lovely. So. But then I did go there after I wrote The Shadow of Death. My husband and I spent part of our 10th anniversary in Wales.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really neat. And then after that, I wrote The Hour of Death. So.
See, good. It's nice to because you describe the setting so vividly, so you know that either from your imagination or from your own experience, you're able to project.
Right. Well, I use Google a lot, so I Googled all these photos.
I know. Google is so great that you can almost fly around the world.
Exactly.
On Google. Originally, I was born in Chelsea, Massachusetts, and so I haven't been there for years, but I went on Google and I went on Google Maps, and you could actually take a virtual trip down the streets of Chelsea on Google Maps, and I was going down some of the streets that I grew up in and taking lefts and rights, and it's a wonderful experience. So that's great. So you thought that was a great setting for you. I've been reading the Kindle version of one of you, I forget which one I'm reading here, but this is Sister Agatha, who discovers that the sexton has been killed, and I think that's the sexton, or the person who helps out at the church. Maybe that's got two books mixed up.
No, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's The Shadow of Death.
Yeah. And so now she's trying to piece together all the evidence, and she's writing on a napkin.
Yes.
So that's the latest one. But I got the Kindle version, and so I'm slowly making my way through that. And it's very, very interesting. You have some interesting characters in there. How do you develop a character? How do you
well, I started first with the characters before plot. So I just liked Sister Agatha. She just kind of appeared for me. And actually, I think I got my inspiration for Sister Agatha by watching Call the Midwife.
Oh, yes.
I forget, Sister Angelina.
Okay.
The one who dies. Oh, spoiler alert. We haven't seen season 5 of Midwife. But I like that because they're Anglican nuns in that story. And so I think those nuns inspired Sister Agatha. But then she just kind of took off on her own.
Yes. I've been watching a lot of Father Brown.
Yes.
I watch on TV, and Grantchester, and some of those, and they're always very interesting. And it's a break from regular commercial TV where you.
Right.
So they're very, very interesting. So right now you're in the middle of you are writing. You wrote these 2 books here, and you have these characters, Sister Agatha and Father Swellen.
Selwyn, Father Selwyn.
Selwyn.
Your Welsh isn't as good as it should be.
I noticed that too. That there's a lot of Y's and X's at the end of words.
Well, there's a great audiobook for each one of them, the audio, and the woman who is the narrator for the audio is Welsh.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and she's excellent.
Yes.
She's excellent. And so if you like listening to audiobooks, you should listen to these. They're very fun to listen to.
So how do you pronounce the name of the abbey?
Gwenifidi.
Gwyneth, do you pronounce the W at the end?
You kind of do. Gwenafui.
Fui, yeah.
I'll have to listen to the audio again.
Because that was
my Welsh is kind of rusty.
Yeah, that was great. That's great. So I love that. So you've got these 2 books now. How difficult was it how long did it take you to write the entire book?
The first book took a lot longer. It took about at least 2 years of kind of working on it.
Okay.
But then the last 5 months, I just really wrote it.
Okay.
And then the second book, I had a deadline, and so that took about 2 months. I just wrote it. Yeah, I wrote that way too fast.
Oh, yeah.
But I wanted to make my deadline, so I did.
Did you treat it as a job, like
Yes.
8 to 5, or or whatever?
More like 5 to 8. I would get up at 5 a.m. because I have a day job, so
Sure.
I have to go to that.
Yes. So you spent some every day doing that, and finally got the book. And then you went to a publisher. I have published a few books, but they're self-published. So you decided to go to an agent or a publisher?
Yes, I'm an agent in New York. Fabulous, wonderful woman. She's with Panda Literary Agency, and she's just excellent. So I sent out about 50 query letters to agents, and I think I got 7 positive responses. Positive as in, let's see more of your book. So I sent more. 2 were very interested, and 1 person, Stephanie, signed with me.
That's great, good. It's nice to be able to,
Exciting.
Someone who's interested enough
Yes,
to catch
I
on
know,
and say,
I
oh, gee,
know.
we'd love to take a look at your work.
But it still means that I was turned down 43 times, so people should not get discouraged if you're turned down a bunch.
Yeah, I know. I've been reading Stephen King. He said that he's been turned down about 1 million times.
Not more, but
and then
yes,
eventually he got published, and
Right.
his wife said, he said he wasn't going to do it. His wife said, you better. You've got a gift. So eventually he got...
It helps to have a supportive spouse. My husband is very supportive.
That's nice. It's good that...
He's wonderful.
I myself too, I bounce all of the ideas I have off my wife, and she reads some of my stuff and says, gives me the positive or negative opinion. Well, that's great. So, I'm trying to think what else we could say now. When this Sister Agatha, she stumbles around things. How did you decide on her clothing, for instance? She has an outfit on that one of the other sisters has knitted, I guess. Or
She wears a jumper. In the second book, she has a sweater that's been knitted. Yes.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Well, I wanted her to be a traditional nun in some ways, and so I gave all the nuns at Gwenafui Abbey somewhat traditional habits.
Yes, and all different colors too.
All their sweaters are different colors.
Yeah.
Yes. And so they're traditional in some ways, but obviously they're non-traditional in other ways. I mean, they're always on Skype, and they hang out at the pub, and I was criticized by a wonderful woman, a real sister, a real nun, who didn't like it that my nuns were always out and about. So,
Yeah.
which was that's a reasonable criticism, but it is fiction, and they do have to, find a dead body and solve the murder. So, yeah.
Bend the truth a little bit.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that sounds super. Do you get any ideas from some of the other television programs like Father Brown or Manchester?
I think what I get from PBS, the Father Brown stuff, is just sort of a mood, like a feeling.
Okay, yeah.
I love Father Brown's humor. I love his housekeeper. He has these different relationships. I think too the way in Father Brown they handled the constable, the policeman.
Yes.
Father Brown is always kind of putting up with him and stuff. So that's one problem with an amateur sleuth, is you have to work in law enforcement somehow.
Yes.
So I conveniently have, in the third book, The Tides of Death, I've conveniently sent the constable off on a vacation, so he's gone.
That's
I don't
convenient.
know, for the fourth book, I don't know what we'll do, but for now he's on vacation. So,
Yes,
on
yes.
holiday, as I would say.
I noticed that the constable is trying to always get you out of the picture. You're not supposed to be here. This is not open to the public.
Right,
and,
yes.
Yeah, and then, but somehow you get all the information that you need. Well, that sounds good. That's good. How did you get interested in becoming a pastor?
Well, that's an easier story than how I became a writer, not quite as. I decided at a very young age that I wanted to go into ministry, and so I'm a member of the United Church of Christ, which is a very leftist, progressive, not leftist, but to the left progressive denomination. So I was interested in doing that. I went to divinity school in my early 20s, and then after divinity school, I thought, oh, I've had enough of the church. I don't want any more church. So I didn't go to church for 12 years.
Oh.
And then I was living in Cambridge, and I just kind of, my call to ministry reawakened, and I went back to church, and I kind of fell in love with church all over again.
Nice.
So I went through the ordination process and was ordained.
That is wonderful. And I noticed that you've traveled around. I think first you were in Iowa, I guess, as a pastor, and
Yes.
then a couple of churches there, and then over to Paxton. I
Yes,
guess. Yeah.
very happy at Paxton. The Congregational Church of Paxton is just an extraordinary congregation.
Yeah, and instead of living in your own apartment, you're living at the patronage or
Yeah, the parsonage.
Parsonage,
Yes. It's near the church.
Yeah. Well, that sounds super. Now, does your husband do anything that is similar to writing, or is it?
In a way, he works in a bank and he does online training. So
Okay.
he develops training for large companies.
Okay, so it's still writing involved.
Still writing, yeah.
Just, you know,
And he does all my social media, some of my social media stuff. He built my website, and
Yeah.
he's designed an avatar. So keep your eye out for my avatar.
Sounds good.
An avatar of me.
I noticed that in one of your websites, I guess you had an introduction where you were a picture of you sitting behind a desk
Yes.
and walking around.
He's made a cartoon of me.
That is neat. How do you do that?
I don't know. He's very techie.
Yeah, that is. I'd like to learn how to do that myself. That sounds good. Well, okay, so I guess we've covered pretty much a lot of your stuff here. Now, you do have, people want to get in touch with you, they can go to your website, janewillan.com, or they can also get your books on amazon.com, but you also have something new coming up online. So tell us a little bit about that.
Right, I'm in the final revisions of a new series, the first book in a new series, and it's set in New England. And Amateur Sleuth is a pastor, a Congregationalist pastor. It's a young woman. She was a former Marine, and she left after she left the Marines. She went to divinity school and became a pastor. And she's now in a small parish in northern Vermont, trying to fit into a world she's not familiar with. So it's interesting. So I've just about finished it. So there's a murder and everything.
Does the series have a name to it? Or
Well, I don't have a good title yet. Right now I'm calling it Murder in Vermont, which is a pretty sad title. Yeah. Something like that.
It gives you the area anyway.
Right.
Well, that sounds super, yeah, and that'll be published by.
Well, I'm just about to send it to my agent, so we'll see.
We'll see what happens.
Yep, see what happens.
In that one. Good, well, very good. Well, I don't know whether there's anything else that we can discuss. I think we've hit around 30 minutes or so, but if you have some other things that you'd like to talk about,
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for doing this. It's really a wonderful opportunity for an author to talk about their books. Always
yeah,
appreciate
why don't
it.
you hold up the book to the camera, at
Okay.
least you can take a look at that, and the other one too. Those are super books, yeah, very good. I have pictures of those that I will interject onto the video part of this YouTube. And anyway, I've thoroughly enjoyed talking with you, and I think you have such an interesting and inspiring career too. It's jumped around, but now you found your calling, and I hope that the mystery writer calling is going to be successful for you. I'm sure it will. I think the two books are doing well, and and I thoroughly enjoy reading that type of genre anyway. So
Oh, good.
I fall in love with that too.
Oh, there is an article I wrote on clerical mysteries set, in a church with a pastor or a priest as the detective, and it's in Crime Reads.
Okay.
So if you Google crime reads and my name, you'll see it. It's about all the top 10 clerical mysteries out there.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
it's interesting.
crime reads and in your name,
Yeah.
you can get to it. Well, that sounds great. Okay, I think we have come to the close of our interview here. I really thoroughly enjoyed having you here, and hopefully everybody will take a look at your books on Amazon.com, or take a look at your information about you at your website, janewillan.com. So with that, I'd like to say goodbye to our audience. Remember, you can get us once a month at wctv.org in Wilmington, Massachusetts. And this is Mark's Musings, and we're signing off. Bye-bye now.